2:47 a.m., Kochatovka, 2-station Tambov region, Russia. In the frozen darkness, a freight train nearly 3/4 of a mile long glides in at 26.7 miles per hour. Inside its 87 steel cars rides $500 million of Russian war power heading south toward Rostov for a spring strike on Zaporizhzhia. At the controls, the engineer Yuri nudges the throttle with routine calm, unaware he is hauling the fate of an entire front line, and unaware that half a mile behind him, between two cars, a thermal threshold has just been crossed and is rising fast. Roughly 210 miles away, deep inside a carefully concealed basement on the outskirts of Kiev, a Ukrainian SBU officer is locked onto a screen. What he is watching does not come from a single source. The image is stitched together from 3 separate data layers. Hacked Russian railway CCTV feeds a thermal pass from a NATO satellite, and real-time telemetry emitted by a device that should never under any circumstances exist on that train. But to understand how Ukraine hunted a target worth $500 million and why it was willing to put everything on the line to destroy it, we have to rewind 72 hours. 3 days before the explosion inside a sealed room beneath SBU headquarters in Kiev, the air feels heavy like the moments before major surgery. On the projection screen, an intelligence report appears with a flashing red header: Flash Priority. A special freight train designated RT-8847, internally labeled the Diamond Train, is scheduled to depart Western Weapons depots on February 1, 2026 and arrive in Rostov on February 5th. Estimated cargo value $500 million. Colonel Vladimir Kravchenko, head of Special Operations, reads the cargo list without zooming in. He doesn't need to. This is not a target. This is a strategic jackpot. If the train reaches Rostov on schedule, Russia will have enough fuel, ammunition, and critical components to sustain its current artillery tempo for another 3 months. If it does not arrive, the entire spring offensive towards Zaporizhzhia stalls. A young officer breaks the silence and asks directly about cost and risk. Kravchenko does not answer immediately. He opens a dense security file. The train is protected by a multi-layer defense system, 14 security zones, continuous drone patrols, and the ultra-sensitive Sobolon-MR seismic sensor network. An airstrike is impossible. Missiles or UAVs will not get through. Special forces cannot approach. Any external attack ends in failure or uncontrollable escalation. We are not attacking the train, Kravchenko says evenly. We are turning the train itself into the weapon. The plan that follows is meticulous. A fake maintenance team infiltrates the Voronezh rail yard. For 6 weeks, they study every shift change down to the minute, acquiring authentic uniforms and flawless forged work orders. Their target is railcar number 24, a lethal position centered within a block of 8 fuel tankers and directly adjacent to cars carrying S-400 electronics and Kalibr cruise missiles. A device costing less than $800 is designed to trigger a chain reaction that will turn $500 million into ash in just 14 seconds. The Moscow-Voronezh-Rostov rail corridor is anything but unguarded, and for a train valued at $500 million, Russia is not merely cautious, it is nearly paranoid. Every major station along the route is wrapped in overlapping layers of security, ranging from electronic surveillance designed to detect remote detonators to armed guards patrolling around the clock, and most critically, the core of the system, Sobolon-MR, a network of seismic and acoustic sensors built to detect sabotage in real time. The system is sophisticated enough to register the vibration signature of a tampered rail joint from as far as 1,640 feet away, and to distinguish between legitimate maintenance work and the attachment of an explosive device. For the Diamond Train designated RT-8847, these measures were tightened even further. Along the route, Orlan 10 drones patrolled continuously at roughly 2,600 feet, scanning for both thermal anomalies and radio frequency emissions. At 6 strategic stations, FSB rapid reaction teams were deployed with heavy weapons ready to intervene at a moment's notice. At Kochatovka, 2 in particular, a junction critical to the entire southern network, an additional Rosgvardia unit of 24 guards was stationed on site, backed by a platoon of BTR-82A armored vehicles kept on standby. On paper, nothing should have been able to touch this train. But that entire theory rested on one fatal assumption that any attack would come from the outside. Ukraine chose to strike from within. Sobolon-MR is tuned to listen for abnormal vibrations in rail infrastructure, primarily within the 40 to 900 Hz range. Yet a shaped charge hidden inside a wagon's axle produces no trackside vibration at all until the moment it detonates. It emits no unusual heat, no electromagnetic signal, and shows no mechanical life whatsoever. From the air, Orlan 10 drones saw only 87 wagons radiating the same uniform thermal signature from their fuel cargo. On the ground, FSB and Rosgvardia focused on drones, missiles, and special forces. No one imagined that the threat had been riding quietly inside the train for 3 days. That is why at 2:43 a.m., as RT-8847 rolled into Kochetovka 2, the Tambov Regional Security Center registered not a single anomaly. The overnight duty officer, exhausted after hours of heavy freight traffic, glanced at the automated status report. All systems, normal cargo, secure estimated arrival in Rostov at 11:35. He took a sip of cold coffee and marked the $500 million diamond train green. 7 minutes and 17 seconds later, that mark would be replaced by a column of fire visible from roughly 25 miles away. Ukraine's device had 2 triggers. The manual trigger was an encrypted command from Kiev, a contingency option. The automatic trigger, however, was the masterpiece, the key to destroying a $500 million target without human intervention in the final seconds. Right now, inside the fuel tank of Wagon 24, roughly 57 short tons of aviation-grade gasoline coated the metal walls at 44.6 degrees Fahrenheit, cold enough to remain stable, warm enough to stay liquid. Everything appeared harmless until 2:46 a.m., when the train began braking for its approach to Kochetovka 2, slowing from 26.7 miles per hour to roughly 17.4 miles per hour over the final 1,970 feet. This was where physics became a weapon. For a train weighing about 3,750 short tons, roughly 660 short tons heavier than normal due to priority military cargo, braking forced its kinetic energy to convert into heat through friction, generating approximately 170,000 BTU of thermal energy. Most of it dissipated into the night air, but a small fraction traveled through the metal structure and concentrated in the wheel axles. The axle temperature on Wagon 24 climbed from 51.8 degrees Fahrenheit to 66.2 degrees Fahrenheit in 40 seconds, a change that still appeared entirely normal. The device did not measure absolute temperature. It measured the rate of change. Its thermal trigger was programmed to activate when it detected a gradient exceeding 0.32 degrees Fahrenheit per second, sustained for more than 25 seconds, a signature that occurs only during heavy braking with a fully loaded wagon. This condition exists exclusively as a train decelerates into a station when speed is low, wagons are tightly packed, surrounding infrastructure is dense, and firefighting becomes nearly impossible. At 2:47 a.m., the threshold was crossed. A 180-second countdown began, automatically giving the train enough time to move fully into the station's resonance zone, where $500 million in military assets would be compressed into a single, inescapable point. Ukraine had turned the sheer weight of Russia's own cargo into a death clock. At 2:49 a.m., 3 small events occurred almost simultaneously, and from that moment on, every passing second pulled $500 million closer to annihilation. First, the device transmitted a data pulse lasting exactly 1 millisecond over the cellular network, a final confirmation signal sent back to Kiev. The 6 encrypted bytes vanished into the background noise of civilian traffic and were ignored by Russian signals intelligence, which was focused on commands entering the train, not signals originating from inside it. Almost at the same time, the axle of Wagon 24 emitted a faint metallic squeal under thermal stress, a sound immediately swallowed by the roar of 87 steel cars rolling along the rails. The final mistake was human. In the cab, Yuri noticed the speed had dropped to about 16.2 miles per hour, roughly 1.2 miles per hour below the optimal approach speed. With a shipment repeatedly emphasized as needing to stay on schedule, he instinctively advanced the throttle by 15 degrees, the reflex of a veteran engineer. 2 diesel engines rated at approximately 2,950 horsepower each responded, The train nudged forward, and in that precise transition from deceleration to acceleration, 57 short tons of fuel in Wagon 24 surged violently to the rear. The movement created a pressure wave of roughly 5.8 pounds per square inch and pushed the temperature up by another 6.5 degrees Fahrenheit. That 6.5 degrees Fahrenheit was the razor-thin line between a safe delivery and a $500 million catastrophe from which there was no return. At exactly 2:50 a.m., the initial detonation occurs. When the 4-pound RDX charge fires, the chemical reaction generates pressure approaching 240,000 atmospheres in the first instant. The copper liner collapses into a hypervelocity plasma jet traveling at roughly Mach 24. It punches through the quarter-inch steel wall of the fuel tank as if it were paper, then fragments into hundreds of molten metal droplets at approximately 4,350 degrees Fahrenheit, dispersing deep into the aviation fuel inside Railcar 24. At that moment, the fuel does not simply burn, it detonates as a vapor explosion. With an energy density of 44.4 megajoules per kilogram, nearly 115,000 pounds of fuel release, more than 2.3 gigajoules of energy almost instantly. By T plus 0.14 seconds, a fuel-air fireball over 1,000 feet tall forms radiating thermal energy at 18 megawatts per square meter, enough to ignite everything within dozens of yards, like standing a few feet from the surface of the sun. In that single instant, Railcar 24 and its $3.2 million fuel load cease to exist. But the first blast is only the spark. The shock wave travels at roughly 3,900 feet per second, slamming into Railcar 23. Couplings designed to handle tens of tons of force shear apart in milliseconds. The 52-ton car is hurled into Railcar 22 with kinetic energy equivalent to over 15 pounds of TNT. The fuel tank ruptures and preheated fuel finds open flame. Within seconds, railcars 22, 23, 25, and 26 are consumed in a cascading reaction. Each carries another 52 tons of fuel, each detonation adding another 2.3 gigajoules to the inferno. In under 7 seconds, 5 fuel cars, roughly $16 million, are incinerated. At approximately T plus 6.4 seconds, the blast reaches Railcar 27. This is where the explosion crosses from logistics into strategy. Railcar 27 carries not only fuel but military electronics for the S-400 air defense system, including hundreds of radar processor units worth about $180 million. They are shock-hardened and EMP-shielded, designed for combat. But no engineer designs them to survive 3,800 degrees Fahrenheit. In 3 seconds, silicon melts at 2,577 degrees Fahrenheit, aluminum liquefies at 1,220, and advanced military technology becomes a puddle of useless metal. As heat and pressure continue outward, Railcar 28 is next at T plus 7.9 seconds. Inside are 24 Kalibr 3M-54 cruise missiles, each worth roughly $3 million, each carrying a 1,000-pound warhead. Aluminum containers soften. Fuses designed for impact detonation misfire under extreme external heat. The first missile detonates, and within just over a second, the remaining 23 follow. A total of 10.8 tons of explosive detonates, producing shock pressures in the thousands of pounds per square inch, enough to pulverize reinforced concrete. $72 million in missiles meant for Ukraine's self-destruct inside Russia. The shockwave continues into Railcar 29, which holds 12 AL-51F jet engines for the Su-57 fighter. Each engine weighs over 2 tons and is built from titanium alloys and advanced ceramics. They are strong, but not against lateral shock forces measured in thousands of TSI. Turbine blades shatter. Engine casings deform. $75 million in aerospace capability becomes scrap. Simultaneously, the shockwave reaches rail cars 31 through 34, carrying 340 tons of 152mm artillery shells. These rounds use base fuses designed to activate under rearward pressure during firing. This time, pressure arrives from the side far beyond safety margins. At approximately T plus 13.5 seconds, the entire ammunition load detonates, equivalent to roughly 45 tons of TNT. A massive mushroom cloud rises hundreds of feet, and seismic sensors register shaking equivalent to a 2.8 magnitude earthquake. When it ends, 14 seconds have passed. $500 million is gone. Not stolen, not captured, but erased. After the blast, Russia's response system collapses into chaos. Seismic sensors detect an earthquake, but surveillance cameras are vaporized, leaving Moscow blind. Fiber optic trunks are severed, cellular towers disabled, and the station becomes electronically isolated. On the morning of February 4th, when Moscow receives the full report, the room falls silent. Fuel lost entirely. S-400 electronics irrecoverable. Kalibr missiles destroyed. Su-57 engines permanently damaged. Artillery expended. Total material loss $500 million. But that figure only scratches the surface. In reality, Russia loses months of combat capability. $180 million in S-400 components means dozens of air defense batteries cannot be upgraded or maintained for nearly a year. 24 Kalibr missiles equal 24 long-range strikes that will never happen. 12 AL-51F engines represent the entire spare pool for the Su-57 fleet produced by a single factory. 340 tons of artillery ammunition, tens of thousands of shells vanish overnight. Logistically, Kochetovka 2 station shuts down for 9 to 14 days. The entire Moscow-Rostov line is forced into car-by-car inspections, adding nearly an hour to every train. With hundreds of trains per day, the Southern Rail network gridlocks, and for 11 days, no fuel or ammunition reaches the front. Strategically, Russia is forced to divert roughly 30% of its northern fuel reserves south, weakening other sectors. Artillery fire rates drop. Major offensives are delayed for weeks. In the gap, Ukraine launches 5 attacks in 48 hours, advancing over a mile per axis, enough to force Russia to commit reserves without the fuel to maneuver them. When Russian investigators collect fragments from Railcar 24, the final picture emerges. Black market RDX, a detonator modified from a commercial jammer, a cheap industrial thermal sensor, a steel casing machined to match legitimate parts. Total cost under $800. The math is brutal. Less than $800 erased $500 million. And the strike continues to inflict damage long after the fire fades because fear of repetition forces the system to slow itself. If a device costing under $800 can turn $500 million in logistics into ash in 14 seconds, the real question is no longer how Ukraine did it, but where the next strike will land. If you were the planner, where would you aim to open an even larger logistics vacuum? A critical rail junction, a fuel transshipment hub, or the inspection process Russia is now forced to extend? Leave your answer and your reasoning in the comments. Not to guess, but to confront a truth of modern warfare. The most dangerous targets are not the most heavily defended ones, but the places no one believes can be destroyed from within.